Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing, and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
Hi, it's Terry Edwards here, Renegade Recruiter, and welcome to this week's podcast. And it gives me great pleasure to be joined by Simon Swan and, of course, by Drew. Let's start with Simon. Simon, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Fantastic. And Drew, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Well, tell you what, Drew, sound a bit more cheerful.
Well, you two have pissed me off with your technical difficulties going on. I'm waiting half hour to start.
The thing is, he's not lying, you know. It's taken us 15 minutes to get this far, just to get to the start of this. Between Simon and I, we've been deadly in terms of technology. But anyway, we'll get going on this. Seriously, Simon, on a serious note, thanks for joining us. But look, for those that don't know you, Simon, and don't know of Hiring Hub, could you sort of give us an overview of who you are and what you do, please?
Yes. So I'm one of two co-founders of hiringhub.com. Essentially, we're a website that connects companies to a community of approved recruitment agencies, and those agencies compete to fill an employer's vacancy for a fee that the employer sets. So we're kind of a middleman, taking vacancies from large employers and distributing them to a network of smaller independent recruitment agencies.
Okay. So predominantly then, Simon, just to help me understand, who is your client?
We have two. So it's a marketplace. So the company, the employer, sits on one side as a client, and we obviously look after those guys. And then we have our community of recruitment agencies that are clients too, and we work hard to look after them as well. So yeah, we sit in the middle as the conduit between those two parties, really trying to facilitate the relationship so that they can both trade together online efficiently.
Excellent. And talk us through the process, Simon. Very simply, because it's clearly I've got problems with IT, and it's seen that you've got them. But very simplistically, how does it all work in terms of how does it both parties get together and fill the roles, etc.?
Yeah, it starts by an employer uploading a vacancy. They go online, register with us, bung their vacancy on, and say, I'm willing to pay X to find a, say, software developer, for example. That vacancy is then broadcast to our network of recruitment agencies. They can see the main sort of fields, so job title, sector, salary, fee, location, all those kind of things. And ultimately, if they want to work on that vacancy and believe they can find or have got candidates already, they send a short pitch to the employer, and the employer can approve one agency or five. It's up to them. And those agencies that are approved by the employers can then start submitting CVs online. And from that moment, it becomes a piece of software that's used to manage the recruitment process. So the employers have got an applicant tracking system to manage the candidates through the process. They can communicate with the recruitment agencies to schedule interviews and all the way to an offer. So it's really just the one portal from an agency's perspective. It's a business development tool. They can log in, see vacancies, see the fees that are available. If they've got candidates they can match with a vacancy, then they can get them quickly to an employer and fill a job and get the fee.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
Right. So the client dictates the fee that's going to be paid to the agency.
Yes.
Okay. And what made you come up with the ideas, Simon?
A few things, really. I mean, I wish I could say it was all our idea, but we'd seen a similar company in the United States doing a very similar model, so it was inspired by them. Mm-hmm. But also, I think, I can remember a time when I was 17 and I was sat on my parents' hallway floor with a copy of the Yellow Pages on my lap, calling 20 different insurance companies to try and get a decent quote on her Renault Clio, my mum's Renault Clio, and that was the way that you used to get car insurance. Mm. Whereas these days you go on any supermarket, you spend 3 minutes putting your information in and you get quotes from 500 insurance companies. Likewise, if you book flights, you're on Expedia. If you want a hotel, you're on Late Rooms. If you want a taxi, you grab Uber. And we felt that if we didn't do something similar in recruitment, somebody else would. And actually, I think a lot of those examples I've given, they're products. They're service-orientated products. So a taxi obviously needs a driver, which is a people business, but ultimately is a transactional thing. And recruitment's not a transactional business model. It lives and dies by the people and the interactions between two people. So we felt it needed to be done differently, but ultimately there was an opportunity for somebody to build an intermediary to better connecting employers to recruiters. And certainly I think an opportunity to perhaps act as a bit of a Robin Hood and take vacancies from some of the larger recruitment agencies and give them to a broad network of much smaller but specialist sort of independent recruitment agencies, which is really our mission statement. Take from the Michael Pages and the Hayes of this world and give them to smaller specialist agencies that will fill them and really work hard to deliver a good customer service along the way too. Right.
And the business is what, 4 or 5 years old now, Simon? Is that right?
Yeah, 4 years old, yeah.
Excellent. And overall, how's it going?
We're in a very nice place at the moment, actually. It's not been a smooth trajectory by any means. I think when we launched, we were probably, I wouldn't say it's too soon, but it takes the market a while to get their head around a model like this. It also takes the market a while to really understand the objectives and vision of the management team, I think, and the founders. And I think we've been misinterpreted a few times along the way. But that's understandable. Whereas now I feel like we've actually hit a moment in time where people are much more open to this type of product and service, and they're curious, and they're actually coming to us now to really understand who we are, what we're about, and what it actually means to them. It doesn't mean it's right for everybody, of course, but the appetite seems to have changed in the past 12 months. And also, as a company, we bootstrapped the business for 2 years, just myself and Sarah, pretending we were much bigger than we actually were at the time, but neither of us took salaries throughout that period, and we just reinvested everything we had back into the business. And we, of course, back then could never deliver the type of service to a customer that we would have really liked to have, because we just didn't have the resource. Whereas now we've raised some money, got some investment into the business, and we've built a team that are focused on that customer experience. And it's still early days. We still are a way off where we want to be, but there's definitely a very clear path now for us to scale the business and really get some market share.
Right. And in terms of the recruiters, is it aimed at the small to medium recruiters, Or
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We ideally want to, we say to small independent recruitment agencies that we're a business development tool. You log in, you see the vacancies, you work on them, and you grow your business and boost your billings each month. We're not really after speaking to the bigger recruitment agencies because they've got a good business already. They're very protective of their clients and they serve the purpose that they serve. But no, where we can really add value is with the smaller to medium-sized recruitment agency that's quite specialist, often in their sort of vertical sector. We can go out there and get companies on board in terms of employers that they perhaps would struggle to do themselves, or if not, they'd have to invest a lot of time and energy to get onto these firms' PSLs. But we're having those conversations, getting on that PSL, and then taking those vacancies and distributing them to our community of smaller recruitment agencies. And we're actually seeing people leave some of the larger firms and this sanctuary of the safe salary and setting up business on their own with a laptop and a phone, registering with us, and providing they match our criteria and buy into what we're trying to build, then we grant them access and they can start getting jobs and working on them immediately. So the barrier to entry for a new recruitment agency is, I think we're lowering that as well.
Awesome.
Oh, excellent. And what about? Sorry, you can ask us something, Adrian. Sorry.
Yeah, one question that sort of I'm dying to ask is, so essentially you've created a market for other recruiters to go and look at what vacancies are there and essentially compete and try and win the business. What are you seeing in terms of, I mean, if I'm a company, let's say that I'm one of the companies that you've got. What recruiters are winning the jobs? What is it that companies are looking for when it comes to picking a recruiter to fill their vacancy?
We're doing a lot this year on the data. So, I mean, with us being an online product, we can track the performance of agencies quite accurately. So we can see which agencies, how many CVs they submit, how many get to first interview stage, second interview stage, offer, etc. So we can build a picture within a sector of what a good recruitment agency looks like. But beyond that, it comes down to relationships, and that's where Hiring Hub, I think, initially was misunderstood, in that people thought we were trying to take the recruitment the transaction of recruitment online, when actually that's not really true. It's the software is probably, 30-40% of what Hiring Hub is, and but the key part of it is the account managers here that act as that conduit between the recruitment agency and the employer, and really manage those relationships on both sides with both sets of clients to make sure that there's a success, and a success to us is a placement, a job filled.
Yeah.
We want that job filled as much as anybody, and the recruitment agencies, obviously, they clearly want to fill it because they want to get the fee. So it's obviously in our DNA to get the right recruitment agencies working on the right roles to encourage a successful placement. And often that just comes down to us knowing what agencies are good at what, and speaking to an employer and saying, well, you might want to consider opening it up to these guys or trying these. And again, so there's a big personal touch to Hiring Hub that perhaps isn't seen from the outside, even down to advising on salaries and certainly on fee levels, managing an employer's expectations and trying to get them to understand market economics and where supply, or the whole thing at the minute with the skills gap and candidate shortage, and educating particularly SME employers what they need to pay to get access to the best candidates, and that we don't influence in terms of fee levels. We kind of track the market. We're not undercutting. Employers can't go on there and say, I want to get a .NET developer for 500 quid, because that just won't happen, and the recruitment agencies in our community just won't work on those vacancies. So we sit there and we're a friend of the employer, and we're a friend of the recruitment agency, and we're really just trying to get both sets of clients successful, because when they're successful, we're successful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And in terms of type of companies that you target, Is it predominantly the bigger employers that you go for?
Medium-sized companies, I would say.
Right.
I mean, we do work with a good number of big blue chips, and I'd say a big company is over 1,000 staff, in my definition. So yeah, we work with a number of those sort of companies, and they embrace it, and they have adopted it well. But no, we kind of target slightly smaller, maybe 500 to 1,000, because they, at that size, don't necessarily have the same internal resources and capabilities as a larger firm, and certainly don't have the same sort of software and bought-in sort of applicant tracking and recruitment portals that a bigger firm would use. They're often not as refined in terms of PSLs and that kind of stuff too. So we really can help those firms and do it very quickly, because there's nothing, when they decide to work with Hiring Hub, they don't have to download any software. There's no reading of a training manual. You can pretty much get set up on it straight away, get your team uploaded, and away you go. So we're kind of working on the mid-market specialist firms again, because we want specialist companies uploading specialist vacancies for a network of specialist recruiters.
Awesome. Simon, again, another question. One thing that we're constantly trying to tell our clients and really reassure them is that not everybody is buying on price. Not everyone who wants to hire a recruiter is buying and sort of relentlessly seeking out the cheapest recruiter there is. And a lot of the time they're after a good quality service as well, or if not more importantly than the price as well. What are you finding in terms of the pricing of things? Are you finding that companies are just going for the cheapest recruiter, or are they looking for elsewhere? They're looking for quality of service, they're looking for speed of delivery and things like that?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think the good employers with the well-rehearsed HR recruitment teams, they understand that these days that they're buying value, and they shouldn't just consider a fee as from the outset as the price. And actually, there's nowhere to hide in a marketplace, and we're in a quite a nice position to be able to educate the employer, simply because we're based in Manchester, and we've had it within a stone's throw of this office, where two companies have uploaded very similar vacancies, both in IT actually. They were pretty much on the same street. There was probably 400 meters between these two offices, these two companies.
Yeah.
And one was paying almost double, in terms of a placement fee than the other. And it's a very easy conversation to have then with the employer that's got the lower fee on, to say, and this isn't driven by Hiring Hub or even the recruitment agency, this is just purely driven by market forces. That the employer down the road is advertising a similar vacancy with a fee almost twice as much as you. Who do you think all the recruitment agencies are requesting to work with, and who do you think all the candidates are going to? And it's not very nice, because obviously it was a smaller employer that put the lower fee on, and affordability comes into things when you're a bit smaller as well. But ultimately, that's we can do nothing about that, and that's just the market. So yeah, we're having those conversations with employers daily. The bigger, more refined firms, they know what they need to be paying.
Yeah. But that's almost that example that you've given there is almost flipped the whole or I guess the stereotypical relationship on the head, because rather than the company going to the recruiter saying this is what I'm willing to pay, actually what you're saying is, look, because a lot of the time a company will go to one or two recruitment companies, three or even more, and say, look, you guys down the road are offering it cheaper than you are, so I'm going to go with them. But it's actually flipped that on the head, and you're saying, well, actually this company is hiring for a similar role, and they're willing to pay this. So
yeah, we know the market well in terms of key employers in key regions looking for key people, and so we've got that intelligence that we can share with our clients, not necessarily the exact fee levels, but certainly around percentages and what other people are paying and where they need to be if they want to see the best candidates. Because ultimately, if you're a recruitment agency and you have a great Ruby on Rails developer, you're not going to send them and submit them to an employer for £4,000 fee when you can get an £8,000 fee or a £10,000 fee for them. So we have that conversation regularly with employers. But equally, on Hiring Hub, I think there is also an element of, if you are that agency with that Ruby on Rails developer, and you know that that developer is possibly signed up with another agency and is hot property and will eventually get placed or find a job soon because the market's so competitive, and a job goes on the Hiring Hub and the fee is perhaps, I don't know, 15% when you wanted to get 20%, there's also something to weigh up there in the sense of, do you know what, I'll take the 15% fee, let's get in place and get it done, and get the money in the bank, rather than another agency go out and place that candidate somewhere else. So there is that we see that as well, which I think is why it's successful. I think if employers go on there with the right frame of mind and put good fees on there, under advice often from their account manager, and the recruitment agencies are pragmatic about it as well, then ultimately it's a marketplace, and with any marketplace it finds its own value.
Yeah, I think the point that you made quite early on, that the recruiters do have that choice, so does the employer really. Yeah,
and that's what we tell every recruitment agency. If a job goes on there and you're not happy with the fee, do not request to work on that role, because if after 24 hours no recruitment agency is requested to work on a vacancy, that puts us in a very powerful position to be able to contact that employer and say, the vacancy's fallen on deaf ears because the fee's not right. And I think if you change the fee to X, then you'll see a different result in the next 24 hours. So yeah, we have to manage the recruitment agencies in that sense as well.
Awesome. And I think Terry, we spoke about this before, that actually recruitment, you'll hear a lot of recruitment staffing and search business owners complaining about how their clients are driving the price down. But again, and I'm getting this from you as well, Simon, I think we as business owners, we as recruitment staff and search business owners, we have a responsibility to actually be willing to not work on a vacancy or turn business away if the price isn't right, and that will then force the employer to put the price up.
Yeah, and I think there has to be an understanding of value. Yeah, and I think too often employers are very quick to dismiss a recruitment consultant's efforts and to completely just interpret value. I think recruitment consultants do a good job. The reason an employer outsources recruitment to a recruitment consultant is because they can't do it themselves. Whether they can't do it because they don't have the network, the database, the market or sector knowledge, or even just the time, for whatever reason they can't, it doesn't make sense to do it internally. They've outsourced the project to a consultancy, and then they moan about the fee, or they really try and drive the fee down, thinking that they're getting better value, and actually they're not, because they're not seeing the best candidates in the market if they're just worried about the fee. So we work to manage those employers' expectations and just take them on a bit of a journey. But like I say, that's 1% of employers. We've got loads of employers using the marketplace that absolutely understand what they need to pay, and if they put their vacancies on and set the fee correctly, they know that they'll see results within hours. So it just takes time to educate a market, I think.
Yeah, and I guess I'm asking the question, but I guess then if an employer was to offer a higher fee, if they wanted the best candidates, the employer that offers the highest fee is more likely to get the best candidates. Would that be the case, Simon?
Yeah, and certainly more likely to get the best engagement from our community of agencies. I think you set a fee on Hiring Hub, and you can. We're experimenting with this at the minute. It's almost like Uber's surge pricing, but it's kind of, a fee should also reflect the urgency of the requirement. And if you want somebody sat on a desk at the end of the week, then why not pay an extra 5% for it and be very clear from the outset and transparent that you want to get this vacancy filled and you want to see the best candidates a recruitment agency's got, and your intent is to hire one quickly. So yeah, that's definitely where it's going.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
Excellent, excellent. And you've been doing this, what, 4 years now? We said. What changes have you seen in the industry, Simon?
Well, it's been a funny 4 years, to say the least. What we've gone through a recession and then quick, seeing growth, and I think we're in a very good place as a recruitment industry now. I think it's certainly changed throughout the recession. Some of the agencies that perhaps weren't so well managed have dropped away. The ones that are still around have adapted to a new environment. They're much more savvy around client acquisition, using tools like social media. They've refocused, I think, and are really understanding the value of breeding loyalty within their candidate databases. And there's some really, really very good recruitment agencies out there in a kind of a new model of a recruitment agency. So yeah, we've definitely seen a big shift, and also I think there's products like Hiring Hub. We've got a couple of competitors out there as well, which we're happy about because they're ultimately educating our market to a similar kind of model. And the market's certainly big enough to accommodate a couple of us.
Is that just a couple, Simon?
Well, there seems to be more every week at the minute, but yeah. I think there's certainly us and the likes of the job posts that are singing from a similar hymn sheet and have a similar sort of profile and are looking to educate the market in a new way in which they can find candidates, and for recruitment agency owners, a new way in which they can find clients. So I think having the guys like the job post there is we're very friendly with them actually. It's a very positive thing, and we're delighted that they're there helping us educate that market. It cuts our marketing spend.
Awesome, Andrew.
And what about the future? What do you see the future is for the industry, Simon?
Well, obviously, quite selfishly, I can see almost the ubification of recruitment consultants in the sense, like I said about before, we're already seeing guys leaving bigger recruitment firms, setting up on their own and using Hiring Hub as a way to access vacancies immediately and grow their businesses from a standing start and build a client base, because they only really have to focus on finding the candidates then and not the vacancies. And I got picked up in an Uber taxi the other day, and the driver worked at Ticketmaster in a call centre during the week, and he drove a taxi on Thursday, Friday and Saturday evenings and made an extra 650 quid a week, he was telling me. And I can see us and the job host and that doing a similar thing to the recruitment market, where consultants sat at a desk on their average sort of salaries with topped up with commission could look at it and think, well, actually I could set up my own company. If only I could find some vacancies to work on. Well, we've got the vacancies. So I can definitely see a split at the minute. I can't remember how I do actually know how many recruitment agencies there are in the UK with less than 25 staff, but I can see that getting a whole lot more, and there being a bit of a split in the market of larger recruitment groups and then a much bigger pool of much smaller sort of 5-man to 10-man recruitment agencies working in quite specialist niches areas and using, obviously getting their own clients together, but also using tools like Hiring Hub to add an additional revenue channel to start business.
Yeah, so you said that, I'm interested. How many firms are there, Simon, in the UK with less than 25?
Oh, you're testing me now.
I am, yeah.
I honestly cannot remember.
Oh, right.
I want to say 14,000 and something, but I could be wildly out. We did do the research from the Office of National Statistics recently, but it's a significant number. And I can see that getting bigger. And we split it between less than 25 staff and less than 10 staff. And both of those, camps, certainly less than 10 staff, I can see that getting a whole lot bigger over the next few years.
Yeah.
And sorry, on that, how? Obviously, one of the things that you spoke about quite a lot is the barrier to entry is getting reduced a lot for a consultant who wants to sort of start their own business. On that basis, I mean, how important is it for them to, and every other recruitment company, to be able to stand out in the marketplace? Is there anything that you'd recommend a recruiter do if you had to give someone who is coming into the industry today, like, how do they make themselves stand out?
Oh, there's lots of things they could be doing. It's almost an overwhelming amount of stuff they could be doing. I think these days a modern recruiter should have a good online and social presence, which probably starts with LinkedIn, but goes beyond that these days to Twitter and Facebook and even Instagram and other tools. I think they should be using something like Hiring Hub and developing an online profile there to showcase, employer testimonials and the ratings that they've got back from working with employers on portals like Hiring Hub. And really, it comes down to one, being found, and then when you are found, to become the person within your region or industry that seems to know what they're talking about. So people will go to them and use them, and whether that's just from blogging and sharing your thought pieces on Twitter and then building a community yourself of candidates and industry people and really throwing yourself within. So that's where I think the vertical and certainly sector specialisms will become king. The days of the generalist, I think, are probably numbered.
Really? Yeah. Excellent. And what about yourself, Simon? What's the big mistakes you've made?
Oh, many and varied.
The biggest?
In terms of the company over the past 4 years, whether they're mistakes, we've gone down a few cul-de-sacs. We went through an investment with an investor that didn't work out, and it took us a while to exit that and get back on our feet afterwards. I think that's probably the biggest. I wouldn't say necessarily it was a mistake at the time, but it was just two bedfellows that weren't right for each other, and it could have cost us the business, but we managed to get through it. There was never any malicious intent from either party going through it, so it actually was just a legal issue to get through that, but it wasn't a particularly nice thing to go through. We liken it to a divorce, and I think that's held us back. I think we're 18 months, 2 years behind where we would like to be now because of that experience. But you can't ever mitigate for those things. I think they just become part of the fabric and the company's story. And actually, we're happy almost that we went through it, because we've learned a hell of a lot having gone through it, and we're, I think, a much stronger business for it. So
I've heard that said before. You tend to learn more from your mistakes than anything else, and
that's it.
We've all done it, ourselves included. that's for sure. And in terms of that, so that's your biggest mistake. Are there any books that you've read or anything that anybody you've spoken to? No doubt you've read my book and thought that was probably the best book on recruitment in the history of recruitment. That's said before. But seriously, is there any books, be it on recruitment or on business in general, that you'd recommend to other recruitment business owners?
It's tricky because I've got such an awful memory, but I've read many good books. Recent ones that I can think of. I've read one recently called Oversubscribed. Can't remember the author.
What was that about?
It's an Australian author, and it's around creating demand for a product or service. It talks about how Apple obviously create a surge of demand for a new product, but deeper than that, it goes into the psychology of and communication strategy around getting people excited about something before they actually even really know what it is.
Apple's a master of that, though, aren't they?
Absolutely, they really are. Yeah, but also, people like Glastonbury are masters at that, and people are buying Glastonbury tickets before they even know the lineup.
Yeah, good point.
Each year. So there's lots of good examples of people using those kind of strategies. So that was a good recent one, and then there's others kind of more just general business books, really. Like, is it Giver's Gain, something like that? No, I can't remember. It's a red book, and it's all about giving, and eventually it's kind of a bit of a message there about karma, where you'll get something back if you just give a lot. I can't remember what the actual book's called.
It's a well-known marketing strategy, though, to
give
your prospects something of what's called high perceived value in return for just their contact details, just to start a relationship. So I totally
it seems like a modern marketing technique to share as much as possible. If you've just found a great way to make more conversions on your website's landing page, then you quickly write a blog about it, share it with everybody, how you did it and the steps you went through to do it and the results it had. And companies that are doing that and doing it well are getting ridiculous valuations from Silicon Valley investors. So
So again, Simon, just on that, one thing that we did before, obviously, we contacted you for the interview, is we looked at your website, and one of the things that we really liked was the fact that on your website you are asking for someone's email address in exchange to try out your software.
Yeah.
And again, obviously, the idea being that people will come to your website, read what you do, be interested in the software, and then giving you their information to try it out. And then for you, that's a lead. Is that right?
Yes.
That's someone who's expressed. I mean, how important do you think that is, having that on your website? How important has that been to your business?
For us, it's the very beginning. It's like putting a tiny drop of petrol into a big engine, but it's just enough to get it going, really, to get a spark. We run a lot of technology here in terms of the way that we automate the marketing and, to a degree, the sales process. So that first email address then goes into a CRM type system that then tracks that person intelligently, and we get a phenomenal amount of data from that person, that contact's interaction with us from then on. So ultimately, they request a demo, which they'll get, and someone from the sales team will contact them and take them on a bit of a website tour. But we can also see, if they've opened our email, if they've clicked on links, if they've revisited the website, what pages they've been to, how often they've done it, how long they spent there, whether they downloaded other bits of content, and really track a journey. And all these notifications are pushed to our mobile phones, so we can really start to build a picture of what buying signals are out there and what challenges that person might be facing, and then how best to sell and market to them to get them to become a higher hub user. So we're quite we run it like a machine, really.
So on that, I mean, let's say like 10 people came to your website today, and from that you can tell if one of them is particularly more likely to buy than another one, just based on what emails they're opening, how much they're looking at this site, how much they're trying the software. Is that right?
Yeah, we might be able to tell who's looking like they would like, but who's more likely to buy today, and who actually might need to go into a bit of a nurturing process, which might take 6 weeks. Throughout that period, we'll deliver different bits of content. None of it salesy. Quite educational, things that might help them in their day-to-day jobs, etc., etc. just to get familiar with us and the brand and what we're all about. And then we usually find that those customers come back to us again. And if that's second or third or fourth time when they do come back to us, if they don't take an action, i.e. can't call us or submit another form, we can still, the software is intelligent enough to tell us that they've had that interaction, and we can then go outbound to them, but it's a much warmer call.
Absolutely.
It comes at the right time for them. Also.
Yeah, and I think what you've just shared with us, Simon, is a lesson for any owner of a recruitment or search firm. That technique that Simon's using there, because any owner or director of a search or recruitment firm should be doing exactly the same. And we get all our clients to do it. So what you do on your website, see, something like 90% of recruiters, they have a website and they don't generate any leads whatsoever from the website. Just let you know, some of your competitors are generating a ton of leads from the website because they give the visitor to their website something of high perceived value, such as something really simple. In Simon's case, he's offering a free trial of the software. But something as simple as an ebook, 7 questions to ask a recruiter before you engage them. Get this free report. I think on one of your websites, I noticed you've got the cost of hiring the wrong candidates or something. But anything like that.
That's it. We've just done a big industry survey, big reports on there with lots of content, because ultimately, for us as well, we've struggled in the past of telling people what we are and what we're about. And when you're a website, you're quite a flat medium in which to do that, and to get any kind of character or personality through on the page is quite difficult. So at least through content and the way in which it's delivered, you can start to engage a customer in a very kind of hands-off, they're in control way. And then it becomes an optimization task of making sure that you're, from an admin sense, tagging the customers differently. So we obviously have recruitment agencies and companies, employers. We have to mark them up differently because they get served different content. If you're a recruitment agency, you'd have candidates and employers and work on those two personas. So it's a big learning curve, and it can feel overwhelming at first because there's a hell of a lot to do. And we're definitely only a third of the way through that journey, really. But like you say, it's very easy to get started. You can just put some gated content on your website, make a couple of ebooks, and make it valuable enough so that people will part with their email address to get their hands on it.
That's right. We work with recruiters and search firms who, the best performing one, I think, she gets something like 80 odd leads a month just from a website. But our average client gets anything between 30 or 40 leads a month just from the website. And when you think that most recruiters, when you ask them how many leads they get from the website, it's often none. And just think about that. If you were only getting, let's say, 1 lead a day every day, that's 350, 60 leads a year every single year. And if you were only to convert a very small percentage, and let's say you only converted 5% of those into sales, what's that worth to you when you consider your average placement fee? And you illustrate that ever so well there, Simon, in what you just shared with us there. So you get them to what we call opt-in, and then you nurture the relationship, and you're monitoring them all the time. And again, I just want to say on this, just in case you're thinking, I've got to send out loads of email. Just confirm this, Simon, that's an automated process that you guys go through when you do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it takes a bit of setting up and thought process around that workflow. But yeah, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And it's the gift that keeps on giving.
I love it. Yeah. So great book there that you recommended. Oversubscribe, and the whole psychology behind that. That's really useful. You gave some good examples there.
Thank you.
If you could change, Simon, something about the industry, what's the one thing that you would change about the industry if you could?
I think I'm trying to do it now. I think the perception of recruitment consultants can be negative. We can be thought, or people can put them in a camp of, with the estate agents and bankers of this world, based on 1 or 2 bad apples or past experience or whatever. And what we're trying to do through Hiring Hub is champion the good recruitment agencies and actually give them a platform where they can show off. And if you look at other industries like, in the for tradesmen, they've got Rated People and Rate My Builder. Obviously, there's TripAdvisor, which can go either way, I think, with restaurants and hotels. But it's that kind of model whereby good recruitment agencies can build a profile within an environment like Hiring Hub and actually showcase their values and their expertise and their historic performance to a network of employers, which should dispel that myth about agencies being, chances or whatever. There's definitely that undercurrent that you get when you speak. It's when you go to a party and you're at a wedding and you say, I'm in recruitment. You get that, oh, right, yeah, don't want to sit next to him then. And we're doing our best to fight that and really actually stop people and say, no, you're wrong. We know loads of really, really good recruitment agencies that deliver a fantastic service and do it for a fee that is bang on the money in terms of value. So, and actually, if it wasn't, then the industry wouldn't be worth 28 billion or whatever it is now. So,
yeah,
I think dispelling that myth would be the biggest, most significant change I'd like to see. But we're working towards that.
Yeah, so dispelling the negative image of recruiters. Excellent. Good for you. Good for you. On a more personal level, Simon, tell me one thing about you which many people don't know about you.
Wow. I used to ride motorcycles for a living, which people possibly don't know. So I was a bike journalist for the most part of my 20s. And I used to get flown around the world to test ride a new bike and then come back and write about it. I had a column in Wedding magazine as well.
Did you really? What was a column in the Wedding magazine?
It was all the things you need to go from a man's perspective. It was basically if ever you picked up your wife's copy of Wedding magazine, it was just the one page that a man could read and relate to. Just me whinging about the cost of flowers and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got a strange history.
Yeah, excellent. So hang on, just going back to the motorbike thing. You were in your 20s. You've been flown all over the world to ride motorbikes, and you were still in your 20s.
Yeah.
What a life! That must have been painful.
It was because I fell off too much.
Really?
That's partly why I stopped. That and there's no money in it. It's a dream job, but ultimately it's low pay because it's a dream job. So people will do it for hardly any money. But you have to grow up at some point and get a real job. So
yeah, but great experience in your 20s though.
Yeah, I travelled the world on somebody else's credit card and saw some great things that money couldn't buy. I've done things like I've ridden Valentino Rossi's MotoGP bike. I've stayed at Ferrari's hotel in Mugello. All kind of things that actually you can't do normally. So it was a fantastic experience. But yeah, I grew up, got married, got children, and I've got a real business now.
So you've actually grew up, and
yeah.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'll just ask anyway. What prompted you to write that article for the Wedding magazine? Is that personal experience by any chance?
Yeah, just back then I was a writer, and I was getting married, and I saw all these things that if I went to the pub with my mates and started talking, what I was saying was resonating with them. So I just put some of those words down into articles, and one of the editors of the magazines that I sent them to agreed to pay me some money for them. So I actually got a free honeymoon to the Maldives out of it as well.
Did you really?
Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. I had to write 800 words and they flew me out there.
Oh, that must have been tough, eh?
Yeah, really tough.
What a life, eh? Riding around the world on the motorbikes and then having to write 800 words for your honeymoon.
That's what I kept telling my wife. She's a lucky lady.
I say that to my wife and she doesn't stop laughing, but that's the story. Seriously, Simon, that's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Drew, anything else you want to add?
No. Again, just thanks for sharing what you shared. It's been really, really good. Really insightful.
Yeah.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. This is Terry Edwards, the Renegade Recruiter, with the Unleashed podcast interview with Simon Swan. Thank you very much indeed. Take care, take action, and be relentless.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.